So I'm back with another blog post from Curtis Yarvin. Mr. Yarvin usually doesn't post more than once or twice a month, but for some reason he's been particularly active this month so far. This one is from April 5th, and it's titled The Problem with Trumpian Mercantilism. And just as a high-level summary, here he kind of lays out his vision for what the economic system of the future United States should look like. And really, his belief is that the United States should not be importing anything from any other country except for raw materials that it does not have the ability to produce within the borders of the United States. And it is also his belief that President Trump has the right idea and the right goals in mind, but does not have the right way to go about achieving those goals. He's in favor of the tariffs, but he thinks that they are being implemented too fast and that they are not high enough. Yes. And this vision for the future state United States is darker than what you might imagine just based on the little summary I've given you. So I'm going to read a section out of this blog for you. So Mr. Yarvin says, I still get messages from people, sad people, who still believe in free trade. Mercantilism in the 1970s would have saved America's industries. Instead, free trade, championed by conservatives, killed them. That was then, and this is now. Time does not run backwards. It is hard to heal. It is easy to kill. It is impossible to resurrect. It is difficult to rebuild, maybe even more difficult than building. Imagine if the U.S. after 1950 had never accepted manufactured imports, that it chose to import only raw materials, not manufactured goods. I am old enough to remember when an imported car was a novelty. What would the downside have been? Answer, the downside would have been purely hedonic. Never forget that GDP is literally a metric of hedonism. But no, the post-hippie elite needed to puff around in their VW Beetles and park in city spaces with their little Honda Civics. The foreign goods were just better. French wine is better for the price than California wine, even in California. And for that purely hedonic victory, America looks like it was physically devastated by a war. Then you look more closely and you see that there are no bullet marks. Side note, Mr. Yarvin needs to speak with some actual combat veterans who have seen war. The United States does not look like it's been through war. Generally, the skills to make anything still exist in the U.S. Sometimes they need to be enormously expanded. Did you learn to code? Then AI put you out of work? Bummer. Maybe you can still be a machinist. AI will never come for the machinists. What would a serious industrial reshoring look like? Picture it as a World War II style project. The financial energy for the creation of this system should come from three places: venture capitalist finance, government debt, and American consumers. Ideally, the U.S. has a plan to end manufacturing imports entirely within the next 4 years by ramping up tariffs to the point where they are simply unaffordable. Given the security that it will be impossible to import toasters except some kind of insane Topf & Sons German luxury toaster, in 4 years, even venture capitalists will see a legitimate profit opportunity in investing in toaster factories. I disagree, but continuing on. It might be best to centralize the new American heavy industry into specific zones rather than trying to reintroduce industry into even old brownfield industrial areas. Regulation can be relaxed in special industrial areas. Endorheic basins are a good place for new industrial chemical plants. Pollution debt is another kind of debt. It can be easier to get to a mature, clean industry by passing through an early polluting phase, then imposing regulations and cleaning up the pollution. Most light factories, though, can go anywhere. Another side note, you cannot clean up all pollution. It does not work to just say, well, we're just going to start out polluting and we'll clean it up later. Continuing, most of all, industrial self-sufficiency is only one of the purposes of such a project and not the main one. The main purpose is to match labor demand to labor supply, to give every American not just a job, but a good job matched to his or her skill set as determined by the government. Ideally, no one should even have to move, but moving is not the end of the world. And the government would say, okay, you'll go here. you'll live there, you'll do that. And at the end of this process, you'll have a new life with a new career that works for you and or your family more or less permanently. Maybe where you are, maybe in Boise. If it has to be Boise, is that so bad? Well, I would say that Americans would not like having the government tell them what their job is and where they have to live, but what do I know? Continuing, the ultimate tariff is simply the requirement that goods be made by hand by humans. In this future America, when we buy clothes, we have to buy them on Etsy, and Etsy's rules are enforced by the FBI. Every time they capture a floating brick of Temu shirts dropped by some fleeing speedboat, they display it on a card table for the local news. These Chinese junk clothes were trying to take American housewives' business away. Now, Sergeant Hernandez will set them on fire. Look how well they burn. That's pure polyester. Just the fabric without a historical clothing tag would get you 5 years for artificial fiber aggravated. Imagine if we still use that stuff. Why, the shepherd could not afford his bread and cheese, the cotton picker his energy drink. Everywhere the economic fabric would collapse. It'd be like the late 20th century. So, this is a future in which you'd be thrown in prison for 5 years simply for possession of fabric made of artificial fiber. This is a future in which we are going to be shepherds and cotton pickers. And those are careers the government is going to choose for us. And apparently women are going to go back to being housewives, but we're also going to run home businesses sewing clothes. So this sounds like a lovely idea of the future United States. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic. Anyhow, you can find the full blog on Substack. Curtis Yarvin's Substack is called Gray Mirror.